Initializing.
Welcome to the 4th episode of Connect with Coleman. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, you're probably thinking, who the heck are you and why should I listen? For those of you who don't know, and for the 15% of eligible local voters who actually came out to voice their choice, I'm Dr. Natalie Coleman, Will County Board member, representing the 7th District. So why are we here? We're here because on average, I hear 100% of people complaining about roads, schools, and the local economy, but only 15% of eligible voters are actually coming out to vote in some of these local elections. Come on, where do you really get to complain and not vote? You do have a choice, you have a voice, and the best place you can use it is at the ballot. Instead of waiting until something happens that you don't like, pay attention to who's making the decisions and hold them accountable. Use that energy at the polls to make a change. Ban books, that's state and local school boards. Snoop on the stoop in a school environment, school board. Funding wars, congressional reps. Gas and grocery taxes, those are our local reps. And our immigration policies, everybody in office has something to say about it and can do something. So for all of my people who are saying they're not voting because the presidential choices are grim, notice whose names were not mentioned in those issues I just talked about. This show has been created to pull back the curtain on just who is making the decisions that impact your life. You'll get some behind the scenes look at my guests, on their background and agenda, and how local elections significantly impact us beyond the presidential election. I don't know about you, but I feel like America's on a dumpster fire sometimes, and the divisiveness we are seeing is just adding more fuel. While it's talk of the rise of expats, the average American probably couldn't even afford to leave their own state with the way gas prices are. Or maybe we need another round of stimulus checks, a COVID pause on student loans, a moratorium on grocery taxes, or just a freaking timeout. You get my point. With that said, let's get ready to welcome our guest. We have today with us State Rep Dagmara Avelar, who represents the 85th District, and State Rep Majority Leader Natalie Manley, who represents the 98th District. So thank you both for joining us today, joining me today. And before we start with the questions, we do have a game. But I first, people hear a lot about the number district that you represent. And they're like, where is that? Because I'm like, where is that? I had to look up the 49th recently. Oh, that's mine. That's Meg Capel. And so exactly. You represent the 85th District, Rep Avelar.
That's me.
And so tell us, what cities would that be?
Oof, that's multiple municipalities. We'll go all the way north to Naperville, Woodridge, Bolingbrook, Romeoville, Lockport, and a little bit of Crestdale, and a sprinkle of Joliet.
A sprinkle of Joliet.
Sprinkle of Joliet.
Okay. And what about you, a Deputy Majority Leader Manley?
I'll go south to north, chunk of Joliet, a big chunk of Crest Hill, half of Romeoville, for lack of a more precise border, half of Bolingbrook, and a tiny bit of Plainfield proper.
Tiny bit. So I always... Before I became elected, right, I paid attention. I voted. I've talked to people. I don't think I've ever missed an election since I was 18, at least presidential. I'll be honest. Now, in between, I'm not sure, but I think it's my duty for various reasons. And so, but when people hear the district numbers and who's representing them, I want them to know like what that really means. And so my call to a lot of people is, who is representing you? And then they look at me like, what do you mean?
I remember being like that, though.
Yeah, but if you're complaining about something, right, or you have a question about something, or you want something changed.
If only that was the criteria for lodging complaints.
Oh,
if only. If only.
Well, I visit all those cities you all named, and I know quite a few people, and I know there's a upcoming primary in March. So now you know where the 85th and the 98th district are. So, quick game. Have you all ever played Never Have I Ever?
Yes. Excellent at this game.
I'm keeping it good.
Yeah.
I'm keeping it clean.
I started to get sweaty.
No. I made sure I ran through these things and made sure it was okay, right? Because, hey, we're elected officials, right? So never have I ever ran a stoplight.
On purpose?
On purpose.
Oh,
No.
not on purpose.
No, not on purpose, but
Not
I have
on
ran through
purpose.
many myself. Is that what you're saying? You might have not been
Never
paying-
on purpose. I think I was just talking. Were we just talking about this? Where you're driving and you have a lot on your mind, and that's why I saw a few things on the way over here today. A guy ran through a stoplight, and the guy next to me had to. So this is
Press
people
the
are
brakes.
distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a lot
Yeah.
of distractions, but even if it's not your cell phone, it's what's on your mind,
Yes.
what's happening in your life.
Yes.
And so you try to give them grace and you hope nobody gets hurt, but never on purpose.
Yeah, never on purpose. Because I've gone through a light. I'm like, was that
about
light
you?
green?
On
Oh no,
purpose?
not on purpose.
Nah.
But I am somebody who thinks a lot and gets distracted quite a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, but not on purpose.
Okay. All right. Never have I ever cheated on a test. Let's go
No.
back to grade school.
Grade school.
I cheated on a spelling test in 6th grade. I
On a
did.
How?
spelling test.
Did you write it on your hand or something?
Probably had you know how you have to go home and you would write all the words out? Had that in a folder on the desk or something.
And then
Yeah, you know, just 6th grade spelling test, you know. I
I
asked
don't
this
think so.
I asked this question to some teachers, and because we were talking about students, you know,
Yeah.
cheating on tests, and it was maybe 10 who said they've never cheated on something. So this was the entire Plainfield staff, and so it's not the end of the world, you know. So
It's so funny because when you're saying spelling, I remember. So when I came to the States, I was 12, and let's see, 12, 13, 7th grade. I must have
Okay.
been in 7th grade, and I had to take English, and I was the only person in the room who was actually able to spell leprechaun. So when you
like
said-
I'm like, can I spell leprechaun?
I'm like first year into my ESL class, and I was the only one in the room who could spell leprechaun. And I remember
showed
my
them.
teacher, and I remember being so proud about this. And I remember my teacher saying, like, how is it that the only one who doesn't speak English knows how to spell leprechaun? And I'm like here, like very proud of it. Now I think about it and I'm like, oh my God, that was a backhanded compliment, I guess. But I used to read a lot.
Okay.
And I used to watch till this day.
Is that part of that process, learning?
I think it is totally part of the process. I still have closed captioning on movies, on TV, on anything.
Okay.
And in the first few years, I used to always have what they call Inglés sin barreras, which for those who come from Latin America in the early 2000s and even like the 1990s, you knew Inglés sin barreras. It was this huge thing of videos, books, CDs
Okay.
to help you speak English. And I would have my Inglés sin barreras while watching TV. So when you said the spelling bee, and I'm like, no, I haven't cheated. Like, I guess like at some point I got lucky, but that was because I read a lot.
Yeah. I think K-12 is okay. We don't want anyone cheating on the
No.
bar exam or any medical becoming a doctor. But
Definitely not.
Okay. Gotten a tattoo. Never have I ever.
I do not have any tattoos.
I have one. I just got it this year. Well, last year. One.
What was the occasion?
Just trying to get matching tattoos with my partner.
I love it. What was the occasion?
I finally broke down. I used to want a basketball on my arm. I'm glad I didn't get that.
Give it some time, right?
Yeah, you got to give it some time. And I gave it 44 years just for one indiscreet, or discreet, I should say, tattoo.
How about you?
I guess you could say I have 3 tattoos.
Okay.
They're all on my face. My lips.
Oh,
Remember?
What?
that's
Wait,
right.
What?
And eyebrows.
My eyebrows
Oh.
and my eyeliner.
Permanent.
Permanent.
Let me see.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, I mean, I did put some lip gloss today, and like I
That's
did my
really
line a little
great.
thicker.
I mean, that probably saves you
just
so much
love-
time.
That's why. I love just waking up and being able to wash my face, put moisturizer on, and I could go about my day.
You have eyeliner? I didn't even know that was
Eyeliner, eyebrow, and lip blush. Highly recommended.
highly recommended. Okay. Last one. Googled yourself. Have you?
Oh, I've
never
done
have
that.
I ever Googled
Oh,
myself.
I've done that.
Oh, yeah. I Google myself probably twice a year. You never Googled yourself?
I have not.
Ah, you should do it.
You
See
should
what
do it.
comes up.
You should do it.
I don't think so.
You say, nah, I hear enough. I don't need to Google myself. So we're going to get into our topics, okay? Couple of questions here. And what I've learned as a county board member is there are certain counties across the nation, not in Illinois, but they have term limits. President of the United States, 2 terms. But here, everywhere else, any other elected official, you know, there's no term limit. And so do you all believe that there is a certain thing as too long? We've seen Mitch McConnell's 82, okay?
He's had some significant public
yes
situations, too.
Yes, and then the late, great Dianne Feinstein served 39 years. So do you think there should be term limits for state officials, or someone said let the people decide? So what do you all think?
You want me to go? Yes.
Go first.
I say let the people decide.
Okay.
I think that there's a lot to be said for institutional knowledge that gets lost.
Okay.
You know, the way that I think about it, I was actually nominated by Speaker Welch, I think it was last year, to go to a fellowship with the National Council for State Legislators. And it's this professional development conference, particularly for legislators who are in their first term, to learn about not just legislating, but creating relationships. Because at the end of the day, there's only so much work that you could do as a state official without creating relationships. So when I say creating relationship, working relationships, I think that in order for us to be successful, that is absolutely key. And one of the conversations we had was about term limits. So I actually was able to talk to people in other states where they do have term limits. And they, you know, for all the pros, there were so many cons. And the majority of it was, you know, what if you have good people who are leaving, right? And, you know, we could say a lot about age. I think I really want to be careful about talking about somebody's age, because I really don't think that that's the only reason why somebody should not be going into office, right? I think at the end of the day is about being a public servant, right? And being able to do what you can do, what's within your power, to be able to legislate in a way that when you come back home, you are able to present policies and results that make people proud. So I would say when it comes to term limits, I let the people decide.
Let the people decide. Okay. You made a good comment there, and I'm thinking, I'm not thinking for you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say she made a comment that leads to a follow-up. Like, do you consider yourself a public servant or a politician, right? And when people would say, oh, you into that political thing, to me, I'd say, no, I'm an elected official. But in actuality, I've always been a public servant, right?
Politics is everywhere. It's not just an elected office. It's in your family. It's in the office. It's in your relationship. It's everywhere. I agree with Representative Avelar in that term limits can be good, just like the discussion went at your NCSL?
Yeah.
NCSL.
Yeah, NCSL.
Nothing is absolutely one side or the other. But here in Illinois, we believe deeply in the voters' rights. We have gone, in the last 10 years, I've been in the legislature, I'm finishing up my 12th year, we have gone above and beyond to let the voters be the ones to decide things. If you don't want a certain person in office, run against them, vote against them. It's up to the voters. We don't make the laws so that we can stay in office. We make the laws so the people can decide. There's a lot of things that come out of the legislature that go to the people. Do you want a progressive income tax system? That goes to the voters. Do you want to have right to work be not the way we do things in Illinois, right to work being anti-union? The more the voters can decide, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Where we get in, and I think has nothing to do with politics, but it has a lot to do with people.
Okay.
So when somebody's there too long, and this is just advice from an old lady, right? People get engrossed in there, and I find this to be more men because their entire identity, some men, is wrapped up in their career, in power, and the things that make them feel important. And as men get older, that it almost becomes like air to them. But in reality, it's really what's at home. You know, if you are working so much that you have neglected your home or forgotten how important what's going on in the walls of your home, then you've got a serious problem. And I think people that stay too long have those problems.
Okay. So let the people decide, but people should also do some self-reflecting. Like when I go home from this position in this office and with this title, how are those things?
Yeah.
And with the upcoming election, right, we're talking about term limits. We're talking about, letting the people decide. Well, the people decided for me, 15% only came out to vote, right?
It is a kick to the gut, isn't it?
You do a lot of work. And what statistics are showing is that the older generations are voting. 76% of 65 to 74-year-old registered voters voted in the last presidential election, while those without high school degrees or college degrees, like the higher income, the higher education, and the higher the age, the more likely you are to vote, right? And so, but then there was something that showed up that said, hey, Generation Z, the 18 to 24-year-olds are voting more than when the millennials and when Generation X were 18 to 24, right? So now it's like, oh, wait a minute. We have
I wonder why that is.
Yeah, and so to that point, like when people say, oh, I'm not voting because they don't like, for example, the presidential candidates. There's a lot of talk about why I've heard so many people say they're not voting because of the two people who will be running for president. And I'm like,
how does that make you feel as a veteran?
Forget the veteran piece, as a black person.
Veteran, woman, black woman.
Women's rights to vote came late. Blacks were given ridiculous tests like how many bubbles are in this bar of soap when they got to the polls, right? So when people say I'm not voting because both of them are idiots, everybody's the same. Like I understand that there are some bad apples, but there are bad apples in any system.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we have an opportunity to vote for people who believe what we believe, or some of the things, or they're the best person to represent our area. And so when people say they're not voting because of two people on the ballot, I say, wait, we have judges, state senators, congressional officers.
Such important.
Referenda.
And so how do you all handle that piece of being an elected official when you hear people with this backlash of I'm not voting, it doesn't matter. And I'm like, well, let's look at Roe versus Wade on the federal level.
It all matters.
And let's look at the state of Illinois when it comes to that matter.
Everything matters.
Absolutely.
I don't know if people feel when you're anywhere between 25 and 50, I think sometimes you feel like you should know the things that you really don't know and that you're afraid to ask questions. I think you should always ask questions because I'm telling you, people don't. Before I became a state rep, there are things I had no idea about. I always voted because that's the way I was raised. But I had no idea how the importance of certain things, right? I don't know how to address the reason why people don't feel it matters. You would have thought that Roe versus Wade being repealed would have been enough. I mean, what literally has to happen for women, number one? And it doesn't matter how you feel about abortion. It matters that somebody thinks you're incapable of making your own decisions because you're a woman. That I don't know how any woman stands for that.
And we keep saying, in every election, this is it.
The most important election of your lifetime.
The most important election in your lifetime. And I think that we need to continue to say that, because every single time that we are electing officials, our lives are on the ballot, right? Whether it's at the local level, whether it's at the state level, whether it's at the federal level, I really do believe our lives are on the ballot. I came to the civic engagement realm rather not in a way where my parents were like one day get up and like, it is your right to vote. Because when I got here, I did not have the right to vote, let me tell you. And until I became a citizen, which was back in 2016, even though that was the first time that I casted my vote for a presidential candidate, that didn't deter me from getting other people out to vote.
Your first election was
2016.
Trump and Clinton.
Clinton.
Oh boy, you saw a really bad one.
The first time that I had to cast a ballot, that was it. It was 2016.
Do you remember where you were when those returns came in?
Oh, I remember.
When we all thought something has gone terribly wrong.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that all kind of sunk in.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember.
I think that one reason that election was important because it brought up the Electoral College again and how that needs to be
we still haven't done anything
revamped
about it.
Because you have to vote for the people that go into office that make that a significant issue. And I think it has to go through the Supreme Court. So when people...
And look at where we are with the Supreme Court.
And that's going back to why you need to vote.
Yeah.
Because until someone pushes that issue and you can yell all day, my vote doesn't matter. In that election, okay, yes, it's a little playing with math, right?
Yeah.
But at the local level where our lives are more impacted by the elected officials, you have to get out there. And so we brought up women's issues or women's rights, not women's issues, women's rights. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But I want to start with the great migration post-COVID into America. And I have a lot I could say about this, but I'm not the guest. You are. And so we have certain states sending individuals here saying, yeah, they're, safe haven, go up there. And we have people complaining about the cost.
I wish that's what they were saying.
Complaining about...
You don't really think that's what they're saying?
No, I'm being nice. I'm being nice.
Okay.
We
She's having a filter right now.
Yeah, I got a little filter on.
Here's what's happening.
About 35,000 have come to Illinois.
Here's what's happening. And Representative Avelar and I have talked about this. The masterminds of the Republican Party have figured out how to take a border issue and turn it into a humanitarian crisis. There is not one person out there that wants to see little traumatized children starve or freeze to death. And yet it's like there are people that are sending the buses our way or to other states that are sanctuary states and saying, go up there, knowing what they're sending them into. That is a problem.
Right, and I'm very confused on how that's legal, but I'll have to get a lawyer to explain that to me because the concern, though, I'm for helping people. I mean, I'm a veteran. I used to work in the daycare when I was, young at the church. I do community service now. Like, you want to help people. No one's coming here because where they're leaving is better, right? For the most part,
most
some people
coming for their lives,
right? And so, but what we hear now is that's a burden on the taxpayers. What about our own homeless issue?
It is,
et cetera, right?
But it is. I mean, I think we have to acknowledge that too.
That it is a burden on the taxpayers.
It is.
Okay.
It is a burden on the taxpayers. They are looking at me like, what about us?
What are we doing?
What about us? So you can imagine what a terrible problem this is because, again, nobody wants to see kids starving or freezing to death. But the people I represent, the people Representative Avelar, they're looking at us like, what about us?
Let me ask you this, both of you. There's a state budget that comes out every year, and there's money earmarked for all kinds of things, right? And so we have funds that go to social services that provide different things for many reasons, medical, maybe homeless shelters, et cetera. And so there probably was no budget line for the migration that has been taking place over the last 2 or 3 years. Maybe it's just now coming into play. But once again, if you don't know who you're voting for, you could be voting for someone who says no to any funds to help, anyone coming, no to social services funds, right? Or you could be voting for someone that says, you know what, we need to help whoever comes over here. We need to do it in the right way. And so is that, in layman's terms, correct, that there's funding for different things, and you can't just take the money that we have for, let's say, education and say, oh, nope, we're going to give it all over to, another entity or another situation that's happening. And this is year after year, we allot a certain amount of money for certain things.
I would say, and I just hit the mic here, we always think of the budget as a moral document, right? And with the conversation about the taxpayer, I've had these conversations before where we talk about the taxpayer as being just a U.S. citizen. You have taxpayers who are part of mixed status families, where you have a U.S. citizen father, a legal permanent resident mother, a U.S. citizen child. You have mixed status families with U.S. citizen children and 2 undocumented parents. I myself was part of a mixed status family. My parents, through a lot of work, they were able to save up enough money to buy a home within 2 years of being in the U.S. And they've been property taxpayers for more than 20 years. So when we think about the taxpayer, we're talking about people who live in Illinois, right, are contributing, right? And the idea here, and when I say the idea about, a lot of people have been talking about the migrant crisis, but we have to learn that historically we've had migrant waves, right? Before it was one demographic, and then later on it was a different demographic. I think one of the things that we don't talk enough about is what we've been able to do for certain demographics of people seeking refuge and seeking asylum. Immigration law is complicated. I was an immigration rights advocate for at least a decade before I decided to become an elected official. I think about being a public servant as far as just being of service to the community. So I used to talk to representatives like Deputy Majority Leader Natalie Manley, but then I also talked to Republicans about state funding for immigration. And when I say immigration, is for services to help legal permanent residents become citizens, to help documented people with their work permits, people who have lived here for years, sometimes generations, and have not seen the investment that they so much deserve in their community. Is there a divide? I would be lying if I said that all Latinos, because this has turned all of a sudden into a Latino issue, I would be lying if I said that all Latinos stand in unison to say we have to be welcoming. Because just as what we have seen people welcome us, and I could think of all the guardian angels that I had in my life when I came to the U.S. who helped me navigate school and whatnot, we've also had people who have been here for 30 years and have said, I haven't seen anything. So we as elected officials, we have to be cognizant of those pressures and try to see what is the best approach, knowing that it's not going to 100% satisfy everybody.
I talk to people, superintendents in my district, and they're talking about over 400 new students that speak 64 different languages.
Yep.
That's crushing on a system that's already stretched thin.
Yes.
But they have to educate. That's by law. The kids get to go to school. So we have to figure it out, because the pie is the pie. When you are sharing the pie, your slices are much thinner, but the pie is the pie. So either we got to figure out how to make that pie bigger, which we try to do as far as education is concerned. This is affecting our communities and different aspects of our communities in many ways. It's more than just trying to help people. It's trying to not have the system collapse underneath it.
Yes. So it is, to me, they can be worked on simultaneously. You don't have to do one and we'll get to you guys in a minute. Those of you who have been here for a while.
They're human beings.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're living, breathing human beings that need shelter and food and clothing. And so we have an obligation as human beings, But now the system has to absorb that. There is some kind of federal law that prohibits many of these people from working immediately. They want to work.
Yeah.
We have lots of jobs.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But there is some wacky federal law.
It's the way asylum is written, right? You can't. Yep.
But if I don't know if you've looked at Congress lately, they're the most dysfunctional group of people on the planet. How are we going to get this fixed without their help? They should be doing some kind of funding for the states in the United States that are sanctuary states. They're taking on like Illinois is taking on this responsibility. There has to be money that comes with it.
Yeah, I agree. The more we take a look into this, the more we see the gaps in action at the federal level, right? So to Leader Manley's point, one of the things that I remember when the first bus came, and I say the first bus because we started hearing from advocates like, hey, it seems that there's this wave of buses that are coming to Illinois. Do you know anything about it? And I didn't know anything about it. Nobody in Chicago knew anything about it. Nobody in the suburbs knew anything about it. But all of a sudden, you started seeing 5 buses coming in the middle of the night. And there were rapid response teams that were set up. And I remember being in one of those teams. And I can tell you that there were 3 things that people were asking about. Number 1 was, I know I have a court date, and I want to make sure that I don't miss my court date. I need legal advice. I need to find an attorney. And then, where can I get food for my kids? And that has stuck to me since that first day in September of 2 years ago. We have people who are applying for asylum. And again, of all of the immigration benefits, asylum is one of the most complicated benefits to qualify for. And even if you qualify for asylum, and then I'm going to go into details, but I'm not going to go into all the details, but you can't apply for a work permit until you have applied for asylum and then waited 180 days. I think it's now 5 months, but it used to be 6 months since immigration received your asylum application that you could apply for a work permit. What are you going to do in those 6 months?
In my mind, it's a crisis.
Yeah.
And we saw through the pandemic how things get mobilized quickly in a crisis. Why can't we do that now?
Yeah.
Well, we had the potential to have $9 million coming to the local area. And I don't know how much you know about that. I know a little bit. I didn't go to the meeting, but I read the newspaper. Was it a better way to handle that so that those funds did come here?
Oh, yes.
To assist the bus loads that
have to work together.
Because sending money back is never good.
It's an atrocity for this area, but the way it was handled out of the gate was wrong.
Okay.
And unfortunately, the people bear the brunt of a lack of collaboration in government.
So more collaboration, because the point of this podcast is to gain some knowledge, but also to hear your reasonable solutions to some of these problems, right? And I'm not here asking you to have every answer and going to check in 3 months. Did you do that? I want to know what's in place now, what's happening in Springfield when it comes to Illinois being a safe haven, because we're going to talk about that when it comes to women's rights. If you look around, we're like this beautiful rose in the middle of thorns,
in
right?
Midwest.
For women's rights, whether you whatever you believe, religiously or whatever your beliefs are, I don't think any human being should be told what to do with their body. An adult. We could talk about some other things, but as an adult woman, and I'm rolling into women's rights here because these are the things
roll, baby, roll.
These are the things that are going to bring people into the poll, into the booths to vote.
Yeah.
Illinois is like a beautiful place to be right now for various reasons, right? Women's rights, LGBTQ rights. Taxes are so. Cost of living is depending on where you go. But I mean, we have men telling women, oh, incest, rape, maybe we'll consider. There's places where you have to go and have an evaluation. This is in Missouri. And then wait 72 hours before you can have an abortion. And women's rights are not just abortion, right? But this is a major one. And
it's healthcare.
I have always been offended because I have friends who have had atopical pregnancies, and in some places they're considering those to be illegal. None of this is happening in Illinois, right? We have about double the number of Dems here to Republicans, and I'm thinking Illinois is safe. But what do you think as far as the laws that are trying to even punish people for like crossing from Indiana to Illinois for the health care? So how safe is Illinois when it comes to women's rights?
We've done just about everything we could do.
Yes.
Okay.
At the state level.
Yes.
And
I think we're good now. But
hat tip to the women and men that had the wisdom, the forethought to get out in front of these things. I don't know if somebody had a crystal ball and they knew Trump was coming and all this. I don't know. But in Illinois, we respect women. In Illinois, women make their own health care decisions. In Illinois, we don't pretend that we know better than a woman knows for herself. And a lot of really strong men and women made sure that this is the law in Illinois.
Yeah. And it was even done, I definitely want to make sure that we highlight this, that this was even done and this conversation was had even before, the Supreme Court. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that has a lot to be said for the leaders that we have in the Illinois legislature who are not just waiting to react, but they are also doing a lot of preventative legislation, I think, to prevent if something were to happen, we're already protected. And that's what has allowed also Illinois to become this beacon in the Midwest, right? We've had conversations.
It might be the whole half the nation.
Probably, because we've talked to legislators in Wisconsin and Indiana and Missouri, and things are dire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Missouri, I did some reading. Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee. My goodness.
I think we underestimate how important those rights are because we've had them.
We had them. Yeah.
Right? We have them.
Yes.
And to not be in the shoes of those women in those states that may need to make some health care decisions, we just don't, we don't understand. We don't live like that.
And to me, it's a slippery slope because this is one right. Then what's next?
Exactly.
Right. And so I'm glad to live in Illinois, very much so. So one of the last topics I want to talk about is the economy. And I listened to probably 3/4 of the governor's state of the state. And I just want to read a few quotes from some opposing people, right, who said, this sounds good, but that's not what's happening. So two things here. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker delivered his 2024 State of the State address this year, pitching a $52.7 billion state spending plan with more money to address the migrant crisis, education, and quantum computing, okay? So we have one Republican who stated, J.B. Pritzker is proposing $1.1 billion in new taxes that will not benefit Illinois families. His proposed hike to income taxes and taxes on business comes at the same time that he plans to spend even more money on his program for migrants and illegal immigrants. And we'll talk about that term in a moment. This came from Senator Andrew Chesney.
Sorry. I was going to guess.
Okay. All right. We got another one.
Can I tell you something about Senator Chesney?
Certainly.
So I was in the chair. I get to preside over the House in my role as a leader. And in the entire time I've been there, there's this situation on the floor where you've got limited time and I can't remember what it's called and I apologize, but one person gets to stand in approval of the bill. I think it's the bill spot, and one other person get to be a proponent, and two people get to be in opposition.
Okay.
Whatever you decide you're going to do. And Chesney's light was on, and I went to him, and we had already had two opponents, and I needed another person to stand in favor of the bill. And I went to him, I said, Representative, this is when he was in the House, do you rise in favor of this piece of legislation? He says, well, I haven't really decided yet. And so I gave him the floor, and he proceeded to completely, I mean, his mind was made up. Okay, it was a Democrat bill, and he lied. He lied in front of everyone. He lied to me. And as the chair, I'm never going to call on him again. If you have nothing in Springfield, you have your word. And he lied. And I hope that people, it's not like an uncommon occurrence for people to stand up. I could not do that. If you knew your colleagues, the ones that have to trust your word, are watching you tell a bold-faced lie and lie to the chair of the House, the Speaker of the House, there's something wrong there.
Yeah.
And I remember some of his colleagues after this was over, like I must have stared like X-ray vision through his, they said, I would never have done that to you. It was so insulting and so wrong and so unworthy of the chamber. That's who said that.
Okay.
So I don't believe a word he says. Move on to the next quote.
And I was going to say, like, one thing that I always like to know is, like, when you look at the budget, look who actually votes for it.
I don't think people know that. Say that one more.
You have to look at who actually votes for the budget, because he and other, some of his colleagues, I mean, all of his colleagues, I think, at this point, are the same people who will use a platform such as Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is, when we're not in session, to record as if they were in session, so that they could get their talking points about how bad Illinois is.
Oh, okay.
Vote no on a budget that at the end of the day helps people in their community as well. Right? So when we think about that, like whenever I see them at ribbon cuttings, right? Like, or when there's an expansion of a highway, or when there's the greatest new thing coming to their district,
they're there.
I'm always thinking, like, where were you when the budget passed? Because I'm pretty sure you were a no. I think that's all I gotta say too.
Oh, okay, all right. I mean, we've
been smacked around a couple times by the House Republicans.
Okay. I feel like you mentioned this earlier, that age shouldn't be the only thing that's looked at when people are asked not to run, or like if you're a cop, you got to take a physical exam, a psychological exam, but to become a elected official, there's no exam. I mean, you got to be 18, 25, whatever it is, U.S. citizen, et cetera, but there's no test that you have to take first.
Like a proficiency test?
I just wonder if we gave everyone the 8th grade Constitution test, how that would go. But anyway, I'm thinking also ethically, there should be some things in place so that to have continuous lives. And we saw a congressional member removed. Santos? No, is that Florida? Santos, it was.
New York,
okay.
Right? I think New York.
Yes. So is that ethics piece that like you said, all you have is your word. I know it has to be an ethics committee in Springfield that says we got to take a look at everybody every year and see if they're being, whether it's insider trading or whatever the case may be. But in this case, this gentleman just decided to get up and lie and had no qualms about it. No apologies.
Didn't seem to bother him at all.
Okay. Let's move on to the second one. I won't say who said it first. I think I like this. I'll read the quote first and then give the name. You see if you can guess. Illinois has lost population for 10 years in a row, and we face the second highest property tax burden in the nation. And I want to know how true that is, because I don't feel like that's true, but that's a feeling. I'll have to fact check. Putting more pressure on families and small businesses under his proposal is only going to drive more people away. We should be providing tax relief, not asking Illinoisans to pay more. That was from State Rep Ryan Spain.
I'm sure I like Representative Spain an awful lot. Like him a lot. He's a man of integrity. And I'm sure from his point of view, and I'm pretty sure he's not lying. He's not that type.
As far as the tax burden, or is the second highest in the nation?
I think what you have to do, I don't know if it's the second highest in the nation. But I do know that people pay for their services in different ways. So we fund our schools and local governments through the property tax system.
Yes.
Other states fund those things a different way. And I can't remember if it was Arkansas or where it was, but they have like vehicle stickers that are based on the value of their car. And so a lot of people are paying $1,500 a year for
a vehicle sticker.
There are different mechanisms in place in different states. Some people have various levels of taxes that if you add the local with the municipal, with the county, we don't have all that. Okay? They would have the same. It's how you compare the funding of services because their schools, their roads, their county government is not free. It's not like we only pay for that here. They pay for it a different way. Now, we could talk about Florida or Nevada. Nevada has Las Vegas.
Plenty of money.
Right? They have, so they don't have
from
to do
across
those
the
things.
nation.
So you can't compare Illinois to Nevada. Florida has Disney.
For now.
You can't compare Illinois to Florida.
Yeah.
You know,
it's not an apples to apples comparison. I think it's just
okay. I never thought about that because everyone's not taxed the same.
It's the soundbite, right? Like, okay, it's the
and we all
soundbite
feel that as property owners.
Yeah.
We don't like our property taxes either, but they're the mechanism by which we fund our schools and everything else. So once you get to a point where your kids aren't, or if your kids don't go to public school, or you don't have children, or you've put your kids through school and now you're a grandparent, you start to feel differently about it.
Yeah, I've seen some referendums fail because they're like, oh, no, we're more of the senior community now. We don't need this additional school or whatever program you're trying to add, right? So I'm glad you brought that up because that's another thing people should think about when we're talking about comparing things on a national level. How are things done in Illinois versus other places? We're going to close out. And I feel like we probably need a part 2 because I didn't dig deep enough on a few things, but I want to. I'll get you guys back in here.
We'll come back, sure.
I don't mind.
We're gonna talk about inflation, and this is like guess the price. So I'm gonna give you an item, and I'm gonna give you 3 prices. Okay, and I want you to guess what you think that price is for that item. So first up, we have organic eggs coming out of New York. Okay, I love New York.
Organic
eggs. Okay. Cost in January of 2023. Was it $4.82, $17.99, or $9.99? So let's just say $4, $18, or $10.
In 2022?
In 2023 for organic eggs in New York.
I want to go with the third one.
10.
See, here's the thing. I don't buy organic eggs. I go to Aldi and buy my regular eggs.
When I was young, that's what we did too.
Aldi's. Yes.
Yeah, I don't buy organic eggs.
I'm going to say 10.
I'm going to say 10.
$18.
Holy crap.
Probably wouldn't have bought organic eggs.
Nah, I'm sure those were sitting on the shelf.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it. If
in
you
New York.
In New York.
Okay.
If you have a family of 3, everybody eats 2 eggs a day. That's 2 days those eggs would last.
Don't burn them.
All right. Next up, a gallon of milk in Hawaii.
Oh,
that's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. These numbers are a little closer, so I got to give you the cents. $5.98, $4.79, or $6.14.
$6.14.
Yeah, $6.14 too.
$5.98. Close
enough.
About,
okay.
$6 for a gallon of milk.
It's all the costs that go into getting it from point A to point B.
In Hawaii. Yep.
All right.
Everything's expensive in Hawaii.
Yeah, I've heard. I haven't been there yet.
You go there, you're going to have to just be a beach bum
and
collect shells.
All right, we're talking about a Honda Civic in Joliet in 2024. $26,000, $28,000, or $30,000. Just a normal 4-door Honda Civic, not souped up, nothing special about it. 2024. $26,000, $28,000, or $30,000.
I'm going to go with 30.
Going 28.
28.
28?
28,000.
Look at you.
Now here's a big one. Brand new home. Because there is a housing crisis. We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah.
But
there's so many things.
it's so many things. And it's like these are the things that are going to bring everyone to, the polls, because it's a lot of fear mongering and sound bites, like you said. But then there's some truth to these matters, and you need to be educated on it and go and vote for the people who are going to help make your life comfortable and safe and all those good things. But single family home, Plainfield, Illinois, 4 bedrooms, 3 bath, 3,000 square feet. Is it coming in at $500,000, $470,000, or $612,000? I'll say the numbers again. Got a 4-bedroom house, 3 baths, 3,000 square feet in Plainfield.
Sounds heavenly.
$500,000, so $500,000. $470,000 or $612,000.
And that's asking price?
Asking price.
I'm going to go 470.
I was going to say 470 too. I'm in between 470 and 5.
Go with 612.
Really?
Wow. Now the other numbers are good for a smaller house.
Okay.
But for a 3,000 square foot house.
3-bedroom.
4-bedroom.
4-bedroom.
3 bath.
3 bathrooms.
3,000 square feet.
3,000.
Yeah. Now the other prices are good, but the houses are smaller.
I thought you were going to ask us about the median price. I'm like, I could tell you that. In Illinois, it's $243,000.
The median price?
The median price.
Okay.
And in Chicago, it's $286,000.
And what size house is this, or how many bedrooms?
We're not talking 3,000 square feet. We're probably talking anywhere between 15 to 2,000 square feet it's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath.
All right, well,
And even with that, if you were a person who was single family income, maybe making about $50K, you can't afford it.
Now
Not at all.
factor in the interest.
Yep.
Those days of, I think my mortgage was at 2 point something.
Yeah.
oh,
There's a
yeah.
huge,
Yeah.
huge gap between
I
that.
believe mine is 3.5, and now the lowest is what, 8? Something like that.
It's
something
right around
around that.
there.
So
How many square feet is your?
Mine is 1,200. Enough for my sister and I.
Mine's 1,800.
Yeah, mine's
and then you
1,200.
have, I think mine is around 1,800, and then you have to talk about property taxes, because Cook County taxes is one reason I never moved like to the south suburbs when I was working out there. I'm like, don't want to spend $12,000 a year on property taxes. So we have a whole nother area that we didn't discuss. So I got to get you guys back. But as we close, I want you to be able to share anything that you think the people need to know before the March 19th election, which is the primary for anyone who doesn't know. And in November, I keep saying the real election, but no, they're both real, very real.
Let me tell you, sometimes primaries are more important than general.
Yeah, I've been a little tense about it, and I'm not running.
Yeah.
But what do you think people need to know? What do you want to share before we end this episode of Connect with Coleman?
There are a lot of great people running, and it takes an awful lot of courage to put your name on a ballot.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of the day, you got to pick someone, whether it's pick 2 of the 3, like is happening now in County Board 7, pick 2 of the 3 happening in County Board 6. Pick 2 people running for one of the 3rd appellate seats. Judges are important, and they're the least known. Thank God we don't know the judges, right? Because who wants to go to court and get... But what we're trying to establish through the Democratic Party is to have a bench, a Will County circuit bench that resembles the people of Will County. We want people that are credentialed, qualified, but actually have a heart for people. And I have my favorites in these races. Get to know your judges. It matters, makes a difference. Get to know your county board members. It matters. How they vote matters. If you have a person running for judge that has an abysmal Democratic voting record and you want a good Democrat on the bench, do your homework.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you're putting somebody on the bench that's going to actually uphold the values you hold so dear, right? That has some life experience, that has, I don't know, that has lived some life and has had to get by and can relate to the average person. Mm-hmm. You know, we both have our stories. I think you should try to get to know your legislator because wherever you've come from, you should never forget. It becomes who you are going forward. And your ability to empathize or sympathize in many cases with other people going through these hardships. Yeah. That's who I want to represent me, whether it's a county board race, a state, legislative race, or a judicial race. Yeah. Ask your friends.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think what you said is critical, and some people didn't like this in school. They don't like it now. Homework. Actually knowing
do your research.
You can literally go and look at what everyone has voted for, whether that's federal, state, right? You can go and see the yays and the nays. So,
I mean, by now, I think everybody who's a registered voter probably got their sample ballot.
Yes. I received mine, and there were some surprises.
Early voting just started today, right? I just, I went to the village of Romeoville, casted my ballot out. I mean, my vote already, so I don't have to worry about that. But, do your research, right? And if there is a special, like if there's one that you're just truly unsure about, contact your local Democratic organization, right? And, just try to make sure that when you go to that ballot box and you are submitting your vote, you feel very confident about it. You don't, this is not the time. We are way past doing eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Mm-hmm.
We really are, especially with judges. Mm-hmm.
And my final question, and I want to make sure you tell everyone how they can get in contact with you, or the best way is, what is your proudest accomplishment in Springfield? I'll give you a moment to think about that. And then how people can get in contact with you. And I just want to say, you have to do your homework. You have to know who you're voting for. I get phone calls all the time, and they say, hey, Nat, who should I vote for? Which is good. They trust in my opinion, but you want to know the people yourself. You want to go out. I mean, there's town halls. I know you've had coffee meetings of all coffees and conversations. I know you've had events where you can go out and you can meet the people who are representing you. And I think it's extremely important that you know this.
Come to our office.
Oh yeah, there's offices.
Email or text. My office, we have smartphones, so we're always on the go. Text us. I'd like to meet with the representative. I'd like to talk about this. I love going to coffee. Let's go have some coffee. Let's do something so that I can answer your questions. We're not always going to agree on everything.
Correct.
And one of the things I say, and maybe you've discovered this, Representative Avelar has been in Springfield now. This is your
3 years?
Yep.
3 years. Going into my fourth year.
Going into your fourth year. People want the truth, except if they don't like it. But you got to tell them the truth.
Yeah.
Because they will appreciate it.
I could not agree. As I was driving all the way over here, I can't remember what I was thinking about.
Blowing through stop signs.
Blowing through stop signs.
Again, I overthink a lot. And I remember, you know what? I remember now. I was talking, so we're right in the midst of session. So we're already getting requests, right? Whether it's budgetary requests for new line items, for existing line items, legislation, et cetera. I remember in my time as an advocate, just thinking, until this day, I have a lot more respect for the person that tells me no than for the person who says yes and then switches their vote.
Oh, yes.
So,
oh, yes.
So to me, I think that, you can disagree without being disagreeable. I absolutely am a firm believer of that. I think the no, saying no to your face is a sign of respect, as opposed to just saying I'll support this, and then next thing you know, they're nowhere to be found.
Oh yeah.
Again, your word is your bond, right?
Yes.
Your word is your bond.
Yep.
we have no shortage of issues.
No, we don't, because we didn't talk about the Safety Act. That's.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I'll bring you all back for that one. That might be a whole show in itself.
But I will tell you, one of the proudest things, to your question, was my time serving on the Public Safety Working Group that brought all the amendments to the Safety Act that passed initially. It was the hardest, most time-consuming process. But when we landed on the amendments, the trailer bills that came that the sponsor, a man of his word, said he would do, all of that came working with law enforcement, the State's Attorney Association, the chiefs of police, advocacy groups, you name it, on and on and on. You can get things done if you dig in, you work hard, and you work with people, but you got to make the commitment to the work. Mm-hmm. And we did that. And there was not one leak out of our working group. 7 legislators who trusted one another, who respected one another, who went into the trenches, into this battle it was a long year and a half. Weekly, we had a lot of misinformation. We had local people that couldn't get in front of a hot mic and hot lights quick enough to run it into the ground and, quite frankly, didn't know anything that was really going on. It's a shame. It's a shame. But I'm most proud of the work we did and being able to have the wherewithal to hang on that whole time, because it was tough.
Yeah, doing the work
tough.
and with a tough topic, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Right. And
a lot of high emotions.
And a lot of fear-mongering, because I heard that people were going to be... we can't get into the topic.
Yeah.
And I don't...
Yeah.
So,
I'm done.
But thank you. Thank you. And the best way to contact, email. Stop by the office, call, go out for coffee. Yeah. Deputy Majority Leader Manley.
Thank you.
All right. And Rep. Avelar, what's your greatest accomplishment?
My greatest accomplishment, I think, till this day, the very first bill that I passed out of the House. It was my quarry bill. You might remember this, Leader.
I do remember the quarry bill.
What's a quarry bill?
So one of the things that I say that I'm always in a state of learning.
Okay.
I've been doing this for 3 years, and there's not a single day, not a single month, not a single year where I don't learn something new about the community. One thing that I did know already is that we'd have quarries in the district. Actually, one of them was within a mile away from my parents' house.
Ah, got you.
And this particular bill that I had was to increase testing of these quarry facilities to make sure that debris that gets dumped in the quarry, once the quarry has exhausted its ability to get materials out, got tested for any sort of pollution, because you want to know what goes in there.
Right.
And it was one of those bills that was really tough, given who was opposing it, who was a proponent, and me, freshman me, being sworn in with like 4 weeks into the job saying, oh, I think this is a good bill. Like, it's for the community. Like, nobody's going to be against clean water. That's very simplistic thinking now that I think about it, because it went beyond clean water, right? It was about the workers who work in the quarry. How will this affect them? How will this affect transportation? How will this affect our lived environment? But long story short, I worked with a lot of legislators, including Leader Manley herself, who gave me a lot of really good information to make it through so that there was an actual agreement. And I knew that there was no way, absolutely no way, that my bill would have passed if I did not have all the stakeholders at the table. So I think for me,
she works hard.
She works hard.
It sounds very smart. You showed up. You got a
biggest
mentor.
She dug in. She learned right out of the gate that this is the formula for success.
Yeah.
Sometimes
So you can't do it by yourself?
You can't do most things by yourself.
Yeah. Good luck with that. Good luck with that.
But I hear social and environmental justice from both of those examples that you gave of what you consider to be, your proudest moment? And I'm proud to have both of you on the show. We do have to end, but more things to talk about, I'm sure, after the primary. And I will definitely welcome you all back. So I appreciate everyone tuning in to episode 4 of Connect with Coleman, and we will see you next time. And finally, after much discussion and finding resolutions to the issues that matter most, I have to admit that there are still some things that are just not working for me. Let's talk about public education. For those of you who don't know, I resigned in 2018 from my full-time job to embark on my current journey and build my business after the peanut. I was a high school chemistry teacher, a CADE administrator, an adjunct professor. I've taught in public, private, charter, and even Lutheran schools. Every college in Will County. The last 3 years or so, I've observed pre-service teacher, veteran teachers, students, and have had hundreds of conversations with administrators. What I've discovered, confirmed, and feared: K-12 education is on the brink of breaking like California into the Pacific Ocean. From teachers being physically attacked, individuals running for school boards while taunting their extreme views, debooking libraries. Yes, I made the word up. Some published companies have even gone as far as taking race out of the Rosa Parks story. Yes, they removed the fact that she was black. But wait, I'm not finished. There are schools where teachers can't give less than 50% as a grade no matter what, even if the kid turns in nothing. No teaching new material the week before a break or after the break. No new lessons on Wednesdays. And check this out. Turning all of your work on the last day of school and pass not just that class, but all the prerequisites. I am not kidding. What are we doing? What are we setting kids up for? I visited one class and 18 out of 24 students were absent. We really need viable, sustainable, and innovative solutions. This problem is festering like an ignored wound or the troubled relative we don't want to seek help for. Do we want to see things break, or do we want to rebuild the foundation? I'm for rebuilding, but where do we start? Please don't tell me COVID did it. While it magnified issues, they were already there. Please don't tell me it's social media or even parenting. Yes, that is a huge piece, but it's not the cause and a whole other conversation. I believe it is the antiquated system. Desks still in a row, state assessments determining intelligence levels, and nepotism at its finest. The lack of generational, cultural, and self-awareness is also an issue. And so while the education system isn't working for me right now, I will continue to work to make the necessary changes for the generations behind me through After the Peanut, the Will County Board, and as a public servant for the people. So until our next Connect with Coleman, take the complaining energy to the polls. Don't just be vocal, vote local.